fast. Way too fast. 3 Iranian boats loaded with guns and guts, charging the Persian Gulf. No warning, no backing off, just pure aggression at 50 knots. What they didn't know was that this wasn't just some unarmed supply vessel, it was a warship. And in less than a minute, the tone was survival. Because when the U.S. Navy sees a threat that close, time to negotiate. They gave warnings, they gave chances, then they gave lead. I had this kind of stunt. But this time they didn't just mess with the U.S. Navy. They messed with the wrong crew. And what happened next sent a message loud and clear across the entire Persian Gulf. Once, then again, still the Iranian boat kept coming. In February of the Persian Gulf, a U.S. Navy warship and a U.S. Coast Guard cutter were en route off in one of the world's most watched waterways. But nothing's ever truly routine here, not with these attack boats always lurking. 3 of them appeared fast, moving erratically. Within minutes, they were within visual range, low to the water, up rooster tails. These weren't just curious fishermen, they were armed boats heading straight from the bridge. The call went out. Hailing Iranian vessels, alter course immediately. No reply. The Navy crew, still no response. The tension on board shifted. Boots hit the deck and gunners moved to stations. And behind the scenes, radar tracking every inch of movement. At this point, they'd closed within 200 yards. Too damn close. The U.S.'s rules of if a vessel shows hostile intent and closes inside right to defend itself. But the Navy doesn't fire first. Instead, the ship fired warning flares, bright red streaks across the sky, meant to say one thing. The Iranian boats didn't flinch. They split formation, 2 veered toward the Coast Guard cutter, ship's bow. Speeds jumped, and it was a textbook swarm tactic. One used before U.S. responses. Except this time, they didn't get a pass. That's starboard. In one smooth motion, a 50 caliber machine gun roared to life. Chopped burst, splashed just ahead of them, not random fire. That changed everything. One pivoted away sharply, trailing wake. The others slowed to idle. For the first time, comms crackled to life, dressed voices, but it was too late for games. Because now, the Navy ship had them cold. Change confirmed, weapons trained. The Navy didn't escalate. It didn't need to. Because this wasn't just about a firefight, and every sailor on board knew one thing. The only reason those fast boats were still floating was because the U.S. Navy chose restrict threat. Later reports would confirm the Iranian boats came within 180 yards of the U.S. Coast Guard cutter and 160 yards. It's closer than you ever want an armed vessel to be, especially in a region where mistakes can turn deadly in seconds. And with explosions, it ended with a message. Because every move was recorded, every warning logged, every shot documented. Q and Bahrain commander saw it all live. They saw discipline under pressure, calm under provocation. The U.S. Navy doesn't back down. But it also doesn't shoot until there's no question. If those boats had come just a few feet closer, this would have been a different story. The kind where... And here's the wild part. This wasn't even the first time. Iran's fast attack boats have been buzzing American ships for years. Sometimes they back off, sometimes they don't. But in 2020, it nearly triggered a response they couldn't walk away from. Here's a question for you now. Testing the U.S. Navy like this, is it strategy or just stupid? Because the next time they get this close, there might not be. So how do you deal with 3 hostile boats charging at full speed? With calm, with training, and with rules. The U.S. boats show up, they've seen it all before, especially in the Persian Gulf. But that doesn't mean that they treat it lightly. Every move is calculated. Here's how it works. First comes visual identification. Drones, the ship is dealing with. Then comes verbal contact. They're warn off approaching craft. It's clear and formal. Alter your course, do not approach further. Come next. Bright lights at night, laser dazzlers, signal flares, horns, all designed to say, turn around, now threat keeps coming. That's when the rules of engagement or the ROE kick in. These aren't loose guides built on international law and years of experience in high-tension zones. For U.S. forces, deadly force is always, but once hostile intent is confirmed, by range, behavior, are authorized to use warning shots. And those aren't fired blindly either. Every on purpose, to show control, and to send a final mess. 25 incident, the gunners executed that perfectly. Short, sharp bursts, water impact, path. Enough to rattle them, not to hit them. But make shots was a wall of firepower. If those boats had pushed just a few seconds more, they would have faced a full 50 cals, Mark 38 25mm chain guns, maybe even helicopter overwatch with hellfire. The entire process takes under a minute. That's how fast things shift from, and still, restraint wins. Because the Navy isn't just about overwhelming force. It's about control for chaotic moments. That's what separates a measured response from a disaster. The Iranians realized something too late. This wasn't an unarmed ship. This wasn't a bluff. This was a U.S. Navy swarm tactics, calm under pressure, and carrying into confetti. Surface search radar picks up fast movers like those Iranian boats long before the cameras, electro-optical sensors, everything feeds into real-time tactical display. And from what direction? Then, weapons. Up front, a 25mm Mark 38 Mod 2 chain gun, mode operator inside the ship. It locks on fast and fires with pinpoint accuracy, bolted to the bow. Along both sides, multiple 50 caliber machine guns, manned and they chew through fiberglass armor and egos. One triggered your way at 3,000 feet per second. Some patrol ships also are guided precision weapons designed for fast-moving surface targets. This boat. And above deck, overwatch from the air. Nearby drones relay overwatch and targeting data. And if things really go sideways, there's always a P-8 Poseidon or MQ-9 ready to turn surveillance into strike. But the most powerful system on board has drilled for this. Hundreds of hours of training, immediate teams, comms, command, all moving in sync. No shouting, no panic, just smooth. Iran's fast boats rely on chaos and confusion. But when they met this ship, they found a crew that doesn't have firepower and a command structure built for exactly this moment. In the end, it was readiness. And that's something you can't fake at 40 knots. On paper, Iran, they're fast, they're armed, and they show up in swarms, usually painted in gray or camo. They hug the waterline to avoid radar and rush in at warships with machine guns, rockets, or even explosives strapped to the bow. Reality. Speed and chaos don't beat range and control. Has eyes on the water from miles away. Every fast mover. While those small boats are bouncing over the waves at 50 knots, the Navy is calmly locking in targeting solutions. No flinching, no hesitation. Let's break this mismatch down a little bit. Power. Yes, the Iranian boats are fast. They just have to wait until they get close enough, and then they open up with weapons designed to stop missiles, being hauled like paper. A 25mm burst can snap a swarm versus coordination. Iran tries to overwhelm with numbers, 3 in. But U.S. ships don't operate alone. They move in strike groups, with overwatch from air-by destroyers. One threat gets marked by 5 eyes, slipping through, a fantasy. Shock tactics. These fast boats rely on intimidation, loud engines, sudden moves, but the Navy's answer is always the same. Calm, layered defense. From flares to warning shots to full engagement. No panic, no overreaction, just precision. And finally, technology. Iran's fast boats are cheap and by crews with little formal training. Meanwhile, U.S. ships in every system on board. They train to win, they train to survive. So while this might look like a David versus David brought a slingshot, Goliath brought sensors, missiles, machine guns, and 360 degrees of overlapping defense. The only thing was how much patience the U.S. Navy still has. Now let's talk about how to getting ugly. Because if those Iranian fast further, say 100 yards closer, things could have combat in seconds. Here's what that looks like. First, the confirmed. That phrase triggers a cascade. Gunners switch from warning shots to direct fire. Near the hull, they aim at it. The Mk-38 chain gun doesn't hesitate. It fires through a fiberglass boat. At the same time, nearby aircraft drones, well, they would pivot to support. Target locks, data uplinks, maybe even permission to fire a Griffin missile if the result, a swarm of fast boats becomes floating debris in under 30 seconds. But that's just the local damage. Iran would most certainly respond with propaganda. State media would flood the region with provocation. Western media would light up. Headlines out and back at U.S. Central Command, things would shift fast. Force ice, air assets repositioned. A regional flashpoint born from seconds of miscalculation. That's why the engagement. One wrong turn, one engine surge too many, and suddenly you're not watching a standoff, you're watching a war begin. 5 miles off the coast of Iran. They thought they could intimidate. But in less than a minute, a warship with real teeth. Those 3 Iranian fast boats got damn lucky. Held the line and stayed cool under pressure. But further, they wouldn't have sailed away. They'd have been pulled from the water in pieces. Point. In places like the Persian Gulf, it's not about size, it's about judgment. A global incident, and even the calmest crew can turn deadly if you give them a reason. The message from the U.S. Navy, even without a single fatal shot fired. We see you, test us. This is why presence matters. This is why patrols don't skip a day. The world still watches the stars and stripes moving across the water. Because when something goes wrong out there, in between chaos and control. So what do you think? Are these fast boats confrontations just real conflict closer than we think? Let us know in the comments. Yes, true, tactical, and straight from the front lines. Make sure to hit that like button. If you want to go a step further and support our channel directly, join the badges, priority responses, and you help us bring more true maritime stories to the surface. Click. Thanks for watching, and remember the next time someone charges you with who they're dealing with.